Our guest today, sculptor, installation artist, Christina A. West.
It's a take on the male body that's emphasizing them as imperfect, fallible mortals versus idealized gods as they have often been represented throughout history.
As the curator and director of the New Gallery, it's my job and privilege to bring in artists to Austin Peay, to the Clarksville community, to bring contemporary art to this area. And so Christina West is one of those artists that we brought in.
I just got tired of feeling like I was always contributing to this plethora of examples of objectified female bodies in our culture, in our history, throughout time. The female nude is synonymous with the nude. Like if you just say the nude, people expect to see a female body. Want them to see something that maybe is unfamiliar to them or has a degree of familiarity, but then presents it in a way that's new and makes them question what they're seeing, and if it makes them uncomfortable, think about why. And I am interested in contributing a female perspective on the male body to the whole canon of just the nude.
So my name is Michael Dickins. I'm the gallery director and here for the New Gallery. Is this their first time coming into the New Gallery? Is this the first exhibition they've seen in the New Gallery? Welcome. Will this be your last exhibition in the New Gallery?
You know the answer to that.
So we're really fortunate here at Austin Peay to have the Center of Excellence for the Creative Arts, which provides us funding that no other school in the state gets to bring in these world-class artists to you guys. So you don't have to travel to New York, Atlanta, LA, Chicago, all over. We bring them to you. Our guest today, sculptor, installation artist, and former Birkenstock salesperson.
Do you guys even know what Birkenstocks are? Have you ever heard of Birkenstocks? No? Yeah. That's what I thought.
She used to sell Birkenstocks. Right? So all these world famous artists were real people too. So she's exhibited across the country in such places as the Mattress Factory in Pittsburgh, the Everson Museum of Art in Syracuse, Paul Wall's Contemporary Art Center in Buffalo, Plug Projects in Kansas City, Atlanta Contemporary in Atlanta, and now the New Gallery in Clarksville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Her work's been supported by many grants and fellowships, such as some from the New York Foundation for the Arts, the Archie Bray Foundation for Ceramic Arts, National Council on Education and Ceramic Arts, and the Virginia Groot Foundation. She earned an MFA from Alfred University in 2006 and a BFA from Siena Heights University in Adrian, Michigan in 2003. Currently lives in Atlanta. She's an associate professor of ceramics and three-dimensional studies at the Ernest G. Welch School of Art and Design at Georgia State University. We're just going to have a stripped-down conversation about the work that you're seeing here. If you have questions, please ask them. And please give a warm welcome to Christina A. West.
All right, so I was telling Michael, I rarely get the opportunity just to hear feedback from people about like their initial reactions to the show, especially now that we're not really having openings anymore. And so I definitely am looking forward to answering your questions and talking more in depth about the things you guys want to talk about with the work. But could we start by you guys just talking about some of your impressions when you saw the show for the first time?
I came in and it was being installed and came face into that one and we're like, whoa.
The video there?
Taken aback by that one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my initial reaction.
So just because of the way it's cropped?
Well, I'm used to nudity, but it's like, it's not an image, like it's not a painted image, it's not a sculpted image, it's an actual representation, right?
Uh-huh. The stark realism was startling.
Yeah, the video.
Yeah. But just in that one, not necessarily in the others?
Mostly that one for me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any impressions? Yeah.
For me, when I first came in, yes, that video was a little bit startling. I was like thinking, whoa, this would take some explanations if the child was be able to see this particular installation. But then I started looking at it through an artist's eye and artist's view, and the workings of muscles and positioning and angles you start to immerse yourself into each of the pieces, is thinking, oh, okay, he had to be in this position to be on this piece, be in this position for this piece, and that took my mind thinking that, hey, there's more to it. You thinking this is actually showing how the muscles really work. That makes it intriguing and thought-provoking.
I'm curious about your comment that this would need more explanation if a child were to see it. Why do you think that is?
I think that our views generally of children seeing our own natural bodies, we're still afraid of our own bodies. Instead of explaining to a child that, hey, this is just the human body.
Right. The child would probably be curious about it.
So for the posing on this one.
The double discus? Yeah.
So is that discus, like throwing discus, like track and field?
Yeah, so there's a famous classical sculpture, the Discus Thrower, and it's a marble sculpture you can see in Rome, and it's a very stylized representation of a man throwing a discus. He's like mid-throw, and so just the way his weight is distributed and the way he's actually executing the pose is very idealized and is hard to actually emulate in real life. And so the models were standing in this structure here to kind of guide them and support their body as they were trying to hold that pose.
I ran track and cross country for like 14 years, so I could see something like this being like this is like the position you're supposed to be in.
Yeah. Yep, and the bucket lid is representing the discus. Yeah, yep. I ran track and cross country too, so yeah, and I was injured for a short time and I did the discus as well. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that surprised me about your exhibition was the fact that you showed us specifically to these older men and young men, because a lot of these are classical Greek positions. And talking about the male gaze and everything, I was just really surprised that you didn't use young men instead.
So you were surprised because that's what you're used to seeing in the representations?
Yeah, the representation of art is young men, not older men.
So what do you think of the bodies that are a little older?
Artistically, it is what it is. I mean, it's just a human body.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, that first video there, that was the first thing I saw when I came in, and that was really shocking to the crowd.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know what to expect.
Right. Yeah. It's also the largest monitor, so we're like really blowing it up for you to see. Yeah. Yeah. The model's ages comes up a lot, and I didn't really think of them as older necessarily. One of the models here is in his 60s, but yeah, he's 28 years old, and so I didn't really think of him as older, but yeah, I am gravitating towards body types that are more ordinary, more average, common, like they're not like traditional athletes or not having like a gymnast body built, like a professional bodybuilder type body. Like I'm interested in just like the common, average, whatever that means, body. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting to see, like, I feel like almost all of the TVs with like the prints that you have, it kind of like shows the artist-model connection, but not in a way that's seemingly like vulnerable, especially with how that one TV is framed with like the movement and jiggling and stuff. Like I feel like it almost wants to capture other people, like in the like a glimpse of, oh, I want to think this is perverse, even necessarily like in practice it isn't.
Can you say that again, that last part again? Was that a question in there?
Was there like an intention to like frame certain things as necessarily being perverse, or was it just to show more of like a gaze?
Yeah, I'm decidedly trying not to be perverse, or is not coming from a perverse place, so I kind of assumed it would not be. The framing there, I can see how you would maybe go there with it, because it's a part of the body that we see as more private, like showing an arm or a leg is common, but the torso and particularly like the hip area is an area that we don't see exposed so often. But I knew he would be bending a lot and things too, so I knew it was going to frame his torso when he bent down and stood up and shifted direction. So it was partially about just wanting to focus on the torso area and the kind of movement that you get in the belly and his glutes and things. Like that's where the movement that I was interested in the video was going to be most evident. And then I also like just by cropping in like that, where I'm pulling you in tighter to the body, and I knew it would be somewhat uncomfortable. I wouldn't go to perverse, but I knew it would be a little bit unsettling, and I do think that it's good when artwork sometimes has that quality, you know, to make you, pull you out of the comfort of looking at something and makes you think about it differently when it kind of makes you a little uncomfortable.
It definitely draws you in, especially with all the casts next to it, to see like your execution with it too. With all the casts and everything next to the actual models is really cool.
Yeah, and the casts, I mean, you call them casts, so maybe you know this, but they were taken directly off of the model's body. So this leg here was cast from the model that you see in the photo on the other side of that wall. So it's like a three-dimensional photograph in a way of the models that were once on that structure. Are there other aspects of the exhibition that you guys have questions about?
I think it's like this internal conflict that you have made
Mm-hmm.
in the viewer, where we're taught from a young age not to stare
Mm-hmm.
or look at things. So like specifically people and their bodies and private times, that's all that. So like we're used to seeing still images as artists and that being digestible.
Mm-hmm.
But you've created this like conflict of I want to look at this stuff, but like I've been taught my whole life it's kind of weird. Like even seeing this guy give a position for you to even seeing that, it's almost like you're seeing somebody be not vulnerable, but like having a moment that you are being a part of, and you're not comfortable with that, but you want to be. So like it's this weird conflict that you've created that the viewer is trying to digest. And as like I continue to look at it, I'm like, okay, yes, this is normal. This is okay. This isn't like something disgusting that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I really appreciate that experience because like not everybody gets to do that. Is to like really fight with themselves and be like, this is normal. This is a natural thing.
Right. Yeah, and in some of the pieces, I kind of amp up that sense of questioning your act of looking, you know, or making you more aware of your act of looking. So the pieces in this back corner, you know, the way they're presented, where there's a mirror in this piece where you actually see your own body as you're looking, or in the black arch, you know, you have to bend down and peer in, so you're aware of your body enacting this thing, you know. So that is something I think about, and it is a complicated response. Yeah, I'm interested in that happening in the work. Yeah.
The thing that surprised me as I was looking at it the first time was what I found to be humorous in the work. Like it's pretty easy to make nakedness funny if you were that were a 12-year-old. And so that's like in there, but you managed to, it seems to me you managed to inject humor into this in a way that's not like 12-year-old humor. It's like smart and gentle and thoughtful. Could you talk about how you think humor, not in all the pieces, but how you think humor sort of generally works in your work?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before the talk, because I always, like, as I'm writing notes of like things that I want to make sure I mention in the talk, I always write down humor, but then I never know what to say about it. You know, like I don't really know how to articulate it. There's just a sense of like, maybe it's partially to do with showing something that's unexpected or unflattering, but yeah, I do want it to ride that line of like not being juvenile or a one-liner, or, you know, so I don't think I'm going to have a good answer for that. That's something that I have a hard time articulating that. It's just like a sensibility that I'm searching for, and it comes out in some of the pieces, but it's one of those things, like I know it when I see it, but I don't really have a formula for making it happen necessarily that I'm aware of yet.
For me, some of it is that the visual language of this is like so fiercely contemporary. Okay? Like you can just glance in here and you're like, that's totally contemporary work. And humor doesn't, like, there's not much room for humor in a lot of contemporary work. So that's like part of the disorient. Like the awkwardness of the guy sort of weirdly climbing into this apparatus so that he could be the dying doll. Like that's super awkward.
Right.
And like a little bit funny, but in a tender way.
Right, yeah, funny, not like laugh out loud funny, where this one might be laugh out loud funny, but yeah, I agree with all that, thank you. Yeah.
So during your thought process, did you choose these subjects based on their occupation, or is it just the way you supported their body parts and gave it, some of them have strength and tension and the other one is just mellow and like.
So do you mean choosing the specific models or choosing the poses?
The model, did you choose them based on occupation or they're just random?
I mean, all of the people in this show are professional models. Like they model for life drawing classes or other photographers and things. So they're people who are familiar with going to an artist studio and what they kind of have a sense of what's going to be asked of them, and they're used to being creative with their body. Like I can, like especially Eric here, I can give him a very simple prompt and he'll do interesting things, and so it's kind of a collaboration between us in some of the works where I'm directing, and then what happens often surprises me in a good way, and I like, you know, allowing that to be a part of the work as well. So they all have very different day jobs that didn't really play into my consideration. You know, is partially like wanting body types that were just kind of this ordinary average body type, and people that I enjoy spending time with. You know, if they're super annoying, I don't work with them ever again. So like. The fountain piece?
Yeah, it's the strength in your foot with all the veins and everything. That's just trying. The ones that are relaxed have a smoother surface. The texture is different. The tension is different.
I think maybe I'm not thinking about it as specifically as you are. Like I have these models that I like working with, and I'm continually looking for new models. And sometimes when I travel, I'll work with models once in a new place or whatever, but I'm not looking at them so specifically, like send me a picture of your calf because I have an idea for a pose where I'm gonna have you flexing your leg or anything. It's more like I'm just interested in what happens with this given person, and I don't control every single element that much, you know, to what you're talking about, I think, as far as what I understand you're asking. Sorry, you look disappointed. Hey.
Why did you choose to exclusively use male models and not female models? Is there a message there?
Yeah, definitely. That was a stance I took a few years ago where, like in my practice up until 2019, I had sculpted both male and female figures, and then I just got tired of feeling like I was always contributing to this plethora of examples of objectified female bodies in our culture, in our history, throughout time. You know, it's like just the female nude is synonymous with the nude. Like if you just say the nude, people expect to see a female body. And I'm also have always been attracted to the male body. Like when I'd go to an art museum, like I would always gravitate towards the images and the sculptures that were representing the male body, but you rarely see them presented by a female artist. You know, most women are working with the female body as well, and then the male bodies are presented, they're made by men, and often like they were in like classical art that was created for other men to see. And so it just seemed like this void in our culture of like, why aren't there these representations of the male body from the female perspective? What does that look like? And so I just started with that question of like, what would happen if I only focused on the male body and just saw where that went?
Yeah, I definitely see that in your work, and I really do appreciate it. Especially because as far as the female body goes, we are very familiar with it because we have mothers, because we've been around it so much.
Yeah, the female body is just so much more available in our culture in all kinds of media, so films, TV shows. It's not a big deal to show female nudity, but full frontal male nudity is really, really rare, and there's sort of a mystique around the male body in that way. There's like, I think it's given more power than it deserves in a way, because there's so much mystery around like, oh, we shouldn't see that, and yeah, that's somehow gonna damage our children if they see a penis, or yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the choice of the grid as the frame or background?
Yeah, the grid on the wall there. Yeah, so the grid, I was thinking about body proportions and the way we often measure and try to define the body in these rational means. And so artists like Edward Muybridge did a series of the human figure in motion where he would take lots of photographs, like quick photographs of people moving across a grid like this, and it was presented within the guise of like a scientific inquiry into studying how the body moves in these various situations and things. So I liked like thinking of those references next to these other ways of trying to structure the body with the wooden structures that I'm creating, and trying to get the models to like control their body in ways that are kind of impossible for them to control it. And particularly with this video on top of it, his body is so uncontrolled, like he's flexing his muscles, but you can't really see that very much because his body is just like moving, his flesh is jiggling so uncontrollably. So I liked that juxtaposition of the control with the lack of control. Hey.
I was going to ask the same question. I have other questions to ask.
Uh-huh.
I think it's really interesting because the structure is kind of becoming part of the body.
Uh-huh.
You're exclusively showing the food and then the hands.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious though, like when you make these pieces, probably you had some time that you worked alone in the studio, and then you're also like working with the model. I'm curious that how the entire process had impacted on your thinking process, or like how your intuition plays in your practice to convey your idea.
So the process of creating like a structure like that, or how I got to the idea of creating the structures.
So starting from your idea, working with the model constantly, I'm curious how your idea has evolved.
So at the talk last night, I talked a little bit how sessions I was doing with models where I was just drawing and sculpting from life, like having them hold poses while I was using these other mediums, kind of led to this work, because it highlighted for me like how difficult it is for the body to stay still and for the body to hold certain poses. And so I had this one model who I was asking him to do the dying Gaul pose, and I was going to sculpt a fragment from that. And then I showed him the picture, and he was like, oh, there's no way. And I thought it was easy. It's like you're sitting down, you have your arm down here. Like, I thought, oh, this is going to be an easy one for him to do. And he was like, oh my God. And he's like, I can't do this unless I have some supports. And so he started just going around my studio, and he grabbed like a roll of bubble wrap and a stool, and he just like gathered up all these things and propped up his body. And it was amazing. And that's when I guess that's one of the epiphany moments that you keep asking about, where I was like, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to create my own structures to support their body because this is super interesting. And so this was the first one that I made, Napoleon. So I was looking at a famous painting by Jacques-Louis David, Napoleon crossing the Alps. He's on a horse, it's kind of rearing up, and he's pointing, looking ahead. So I just started creating the structure without the model, and I would like sit on it to kind of get a sense of how it felt and everything. And it kind of makes me chuckle that the base of this is a sawhorse, so it's representing a horse, and it is another kind of horse, and it's kind of like, cheesy humor. But yeah, I don't know where to go from there. Is there any way I could follow up on that? That would be helpful.
Yeah.
That was good. Okay.
We got time for one more.
One more? Sure.
You talked about regarding the models, and I know you're setting up these structures for them. Mm-hmm. But how much of a collaborative process is this? I know some of your models have actually sought you out and that were fans of your work. Mm-hmm. And drove a long way to work with you. Mm-hmm. But how much is that a collaborative process where what are they bringing in and how does that influence? Mm-hmm. How much control do you give them, or do you just?
Yeah, it varies from piece to piece. So for something like this, I say I show them a picture of the pose, I show them the structure, and I'm like, let's see how your body fits on the structure and see if I need to adjust it at all. And I'm like, just hold still as long as you can. And I'll literally just point the camera at them and just be like, when you can't hold it anymore, stop. And so we're like sitting there for 15 minutes with them, like trying to hold this pose. And then other things like the mirror piece over there, the model was bringing a lot to that because the prompt I gave him was much more open. I had a mirror on the floor and the camera was cropped around that, and I was like, I think I just said interact with the mirror, and I was just curious what he would do. Like a lot of times I'm just interested to see what they do, because sometimes often they do things that I don't expect, and that's really interesting. Sometimes they do things I don't expect and I don't like it. So I shoot like tons and tons of footage, and I end up using a very little amount of it. But it's that process of figuring out what I really want through the trial and error and seeing what they bring to the idea when they're interpreting my direction that makes the process really exciting. Is that?
Yeah, no, that's
good?
Great. In interest of time, I'm just going to wrap up. I know you're going to be hanging out here, so if you have any questions and want to talk to Christina directly, we're just going to be hanging out. If you notice the new vinyl kind of on the outside of the gallery, it's the new gallery, visit, engage, think, and repeat. And so that's what I want you to do with all the shows that come in here. Come in, engage with the work, think about the work, and then come back and see if you think about something different, right? And one thing we do is the gallery guide, if you get a chance, is an excellent exhibition essay by Madeleine Seidel. She's an arts writer that writes for Burnaway and Freeze and Brooklyn Rail. She wrote the essay specifically for us in this exhibition. So read that, it gives you some great context. Read it, come back, read it again, come back. So again, thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. You guys had really good questions and observations, and that was really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and you have till next Friday to see the show. It closes next Friday, then we'll start up a week, and then we'll start with a brand new exhibition. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.